Hello, this is a quick review for Management 501, Foundations of Business for Week 2. Week 2 is focusing on business ownership and entrepreneur, which would be chapters 4 and 5 of the text. Again, this is just a brief overview, and we'll just spend a second first reviewing the intent of the course. The intent of the course is to introduce non-business majors at the undergraduate level in an MBA program to the foundations of business. The foundation of business, of course, is to first make a profit to serve the purpose or the why of the organization. That is done through the functional areas of finance, accounting, marketing, operations, IT, HR, are those which are typically the functional areas. All of those need to work synergistically, whether it is a small single organization or is a large corporation, in order for that profit to happen. Remembering that one of the components of profitability is to be able to sell the product or service at a price higher than the cost and the operating expenses relative to what people value. And people value something that is greater or equal to what they're giving up, in this case, money. It's the organization's job to communicate to the market that their product or service indeed has value relative to the competitive environment that it exists in, to supply and demand, to the external market, technology, political, legal, regulatory, competition, societal change and shift are all areas, regulation are all areas, demographic shift are all areas in the external environment that the organizations also have to operate in, while maintaining some flexibility in their business model. So moving forward, and last portion kind of a review is noting that organizations that do that in a way that their purpose and why is fully known to all stakeholders, employees, to customers, to vendors, to the community it operates in, that does that in a way that you could argue is socially and ethically responsible, which the market typically will decide whether their business model is social and ethically responsible, typically wins over the long term, that they're financially feasible over the long term, or what we call a going concern. So we don't want to dismiss one of the foundations of an organization, that it should be built on ethics and at least an ethical foundation, and we argue at the Dahl School of Business that implementing the 5 values of hospitality, service, integrity, stewardship, and contemplation would be a great place to start when thinking about the why or the purpose of an organization, and work your way outwardly to the what and the how in communicating the value proposition to the market. So with that said, chapters 4 and 5, or the second week, is on choosing a business structure or business ownership structure, and then also entrepreneurship. Organizations typically start as a sole proprietorship and move their way as they grow through a number of iterations, and sometimes end up being either a private or a publicly traded corporation. In any case, the structure should be set that best fits the organizational capabilities, how they compete in the marketplace, and what level of competition they're seeking, whether it is a niche market, whether it is regional, whether it is local, national, or even global. Often is going to have much, will often weigh much in which organizational methodology is chosen. Recognition here is that no one organizational methodology is better than the other. It's the one that fits the best at the time. And notice I said at the time because there is fluidity to that, and that can and certainly does change. Just in rough numbers, about 80% of all organizations in the United States, 70% actually, are in the United States are sole proprietorships owned by a single owner, which could employ thousands of people or could employ 2 people. About 20% are corporations, either public or private. Private means that only a small group of people have control of the financial interest of the corporation or business. And then a publicly traded company is anybody who has the ability to take risk and buy into the financial success or failure through one of the exchanges like the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. And the remaining 10% are partnerships. And partnerships does not exclusively mean two, it's just one or more than one individuals that pool their resources together and form a contract for a business. Entrepreneurship is obviously at the impetus of how organizations or businesses start when they find that a need is not being met in the marketplace, and they decide that they can do it better or differently at a value proposition that they believe works in the marketplace. Entrepreneurs start the business. Of course, in our economy, in a mixed capitalistic society, we need entrepreneurs. In fact, entrepreneurs provide the majority of the growth in our economy. So their ability to raise capital, their ability to take risk, their ability to do it in an environment that's conducive to their entrepreneurial idea is all important. A mixed capitalist society typically allows for entrepreneurs to flourish relative to other economies like socialism and communism, where economists argue that it's more difficult to be an entrepreneur. In any event, entrepreneurial activity requires special skills and a special mindset of individuals, and that entrepreneurial spirit often is the catalyst that takes small individual businesses that are started in someone's garage like Microsoft and allows them to flourish and go through a number of iterations to become a very powerful large corporation that has very high capitalization. Capitalization means value, their stock price times the number of shares that employs tens of thousands of people. Entrepreneurship also is tied to a concept we've been working on this week, which is disruptive innovation. We have gotten to the point in the modern business model, or you could argue business 2.0, because of global competition and the opening up of markets around the world to being the majority of mixed capitalism, that disruptive innovation is important. The reason is this: if you have disruptive innovation, that means you're unique, and you're competing to be unique rather than competing on price. If you compete on price and price alone, the competition will match, and eventually what will happen is the price will drop all the way to the point where your margins are so low it's almost not worth being in business. You could sell a ton of stuff. You could be the market leader and have the most market share and make almost no money. And if you make no money, you can't do, or at least fulfill the purpose or the why of the corporation as good. So it's important to be profitable and continue to be profitable. And the best way to do that is through higher margins. Well, you can charge higher margins or a premium price if people understand your value proposition or your purpose and your why better than the competition. And it's easy to tell that story if you do something unique that somebody else does not do. That now, in many cases, is being called a disruptive innovation. You're disrupting what the diffusion of innovation has accepted as common practices or common products or common pricing models or supply models or whatever it might be. You are doing something different. The classic example that's been given recently is Uber, where Uber totally changed the way in which the need for transportation without a car is being delivered in medium to large size cities. They decided to not own cars. They decided to subcontract out that service to people who already owned a vehicle, found a legal way to do it in most cases, and totally disrupted the way they decided to do things. Netflix did the same thing with how they decided to offer the service of how people consume entertainment. And you could argue that Amazon has done it did the same thing or is doing the same thing on how people purchase things that they could get at a brick and mortar store, and then now how it's being delivered, let's say through drones. It can be dramatic like that, or it can be subtle. Nonetheless, we need entrepreneurial spirit, entrepreneurial thinking, research and development in organizations to continue to develop the business model. Otherwise, what happens is you become flat-footed as an organization. You can only now compete on price, and someone can and will always beat you on price to the point that you're really not making much per sale And again, what is the point then of being in business? So to tie things together through up to the end of week 2, we are working on the notion that all businesses need to exist to make money. The best businesses, research shows, do it through communicating their why or their purpose better than anybody else. And the best way to commute the why or the purpose is that you are doing something differently or uniquely. Often we could argue that that is through a disruptive innovation. All of those things can happen the most efficiently and the effectively in a market-driven economy. Some call that mixed capitalism in the United States, and there's other models around the world that are similar to ours where that works. By evidence, we are the world's largest economy by output or the gross domestic product, and that gross domestic product is one, not the only way, one way to measure the success of a country in terms of improving the standard of living of all.